Katarina's Garage. My name is Katarina Lloyd, and well, as you can see, I am here with both Stitch, my 1981 Ford Mustang, and Lilo, my 1986 Ford Mustang Convertible. Now, this video is going to be actually about like what to consider when you're looking at a classic car, and especially these fox bodies, and what to consider. So anyways, let's go take a tour of the two cars and see what's up. What's what? So, if we take a look at these two cars, because most people are most interested in this car, which most people, like, they love the notchbacks more than the convertibles. Like, the convertibles don't get as much love, but convertibles are fun too. However, this is my 81 Ford Mustang. It's got, honestly, it does have some upgrades, but it's still not very fast at all. And it won't be fast until we do some massive improvements to the header and whatever else. And of course, you know, it does have some issues with the body that we need to address a little bit. But other than that, you know what? It's actually, this car is in better shape overall than the car behind it. Like I mentioned before, you know what? We take a look inside and show you guys. So there's not much to speak about in here, and to be honest, it is a little dirty in this one at the moment. It's just a bit of a mess, and I just did not get it cleaned up very much. But you know, you can see this seat does not fold down actually, so you don't have that much space when it comes to that sort of thing. But sitting inside, it's really not that bad at all, because you know, we can see here, like, I've got a decent amount of headroom. Like, I'm 5'10", so, which, yeah, most people don't realize that I'm not tall, and then, you know, in these wedges, I'm about 6'1", 6'2", but the one thing is, headroom is actually nice in these, and you can actually, fold the seat back quite a bit of ways to give you even more legroom and whatnot, so that is nice. They are super, super simplistic. Even the later ones with fuel injection are really not too bad, for being complicated, but this car, like, is more simple than majority of them, because it's got the 200 inline 6, which this engine design was from, they started it in the mid 50s, and actually, I think the first time they actually put it into a car was either 1960 or 1961. But, and not actually the 200, but the 144, and then it grew to the 200 over time. But anyways, let's take a look under the hood, and you'll see actually how much room is under these hoods as well, and what is considered, like, what you actually have to do if you want to have your big performer or whatever else, and you don't want to build up the inline 6 like I'm doing, of what is involved of actually swapping this over to a V8. So let's have a look here. And I'll also show you guys, because I do have a custom exhaust on this thing, of how you can actually make one of these sound with the inline 6. Because it's a treat. So yeah, under the hood you see the 200 inline 6, and look at how much room you have in these engine bays. They're actually a pretty big engine bay. You can fit a 460 in these, no problem, like your big blocks and whatever else. It is a little tight with a big block, but it's not actually too bad. And, you know, and, like, if you want to be different, you can put the 300s in them, but you do have to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you have to run an electric fan no matter what, and, like, a nice hugger electric fan, and you might have to notch the firewall, too. And potentially, you might have to cut your hood, too. So, this one is nowhere near original under here, other than the block and the internals of the block. But, you know, I've got this nice valve cover on here from Vintage Inlines. I've got the MSD Street Fire coils, or coil wires. I've got the Super SL coil down there. You can kind of see it. I've got this 2¼ inch Leyland Global rad. Currently has, it used to have the Optima battery, but that's in the other car. So it just has this little Napa battery at the moment, but, you know, it's fine. It has 0 emissions control on it. I've deleted all the stuff, which, oddly enough, all these 200s have, unless if you're in California. And I believe 1982 may have been a little different than this. But you have an EGR valve, and you have a catalytic converter, and a charcoal canister. That's it. No smog pumps until 1982 that I've seen, but it may have been California as well that just did the smog pumps, so it's possible. But, well, the one thing is about these, though, too, is something to consider. Honestly, if you're getting one of these, they make an awesome little hot rod, because these have loads of aftermarket, like an insane amount. And if you actually want to use it year-round, you can. I mean, I drive this thing through the snow, through rain, through everything, and it's fine. You know, but it doesn't have a lot of power, so I don't really have to worry about that. But I've got these really fat tires under the back, which if you are wanting to run the same size tire I am, you will have to roll the fenders, because mine do rub. You can kind of see a bit of it here, of it rubbing. So I do need to roll these fenders a bit more. But yeah, so these are a 275 60 15. Now you can run a 275 like 55 15 and you'll be fine. But these tires are just cheap, and honestly that's the reason why I got them. Plus they look killer on this car. I had them on the convertible before, but yeah. But anyways, if as well, and if you're thinking about getting something that is good on the fuel economy, these are a good choice as well. Even with the automatic, which it's a C4 automatic or sometimes a C3. This one was optioned out with a C4. And gear ratios, whatever else, like this thing gets around 25, 26 miles per gallon US on the highway, give or take. So it is a fantastic little car in that regard. And it's very comfortable, actually. I don't have any comfort concerns whatsoever with both of these cars. Because the seats are actually phenomenal. The earlier Fox bodies, like earlier than this with the earlier seats, are not quite as good, but they're still pretty decent, honestly. But you can always swap out seats like I did. Like these seats are out of an 83 Mustang. So yeah, but anyways, let us I'll show you guys how this thing sounds, and you can get your 200 inline six to sound just like this. It's not a super loud sound or anything like that. This has a stock cam in it and everything, but it does have a pretty good dual exhaust on it. Right, like, has a pretty good sound to it, and I absolutely love the way it sounds. This car like also has some other upgrades, like it's got sequential taillights and stuff like that too. But so you might be wondering, well, if you get an inline six car, how do you actually swap it to a V8? Because you might not like the inline six, and you can actually pick up the inline sixes for a lot cheaper than any of your V8s or even the 4-cylinders or the V6. Like this car back in March of 2019, I bought it for only 500 bucks, right? But it was not in the condition you see it now. The interior was all taken apart under the hood. And actually, I'll show some pictures of it when I first got it at the end of the video. So the one thing is, you'll notice down here, if you want to put a Ford V8 in these things, well, what you actually have to do is, you see this motor mount here? This is close to actually a small block Chevy motor mount. So what you actually have to do to get it to mount properly, whatever else, is actually swap the K-member to a V8 K-member. So it's a little bit involved with that. It's not too difficult, but it's not something I'm interested in doing. And I just want to build out this inline six because it's cooler to me, right? And there's so much room for activities, like, you know, I could put a turbo like right here. So, which I really want to do actually. So we'll see. But yeah, so that's something to consider when you're buying these. And like, you know, because yeah, these inline six ones are honestly fantastic. And I get, you know, you either love this car or you hate this car. You know, just one of these things. So many people want me to paint it, and it will eventually get painted, but not anytime soon. You can see my sort of proof of concept, which this is definitely, I'm kind of doing this tritone on it, and it looks fantastic. So now let's move on to, if you want to be a little more unconventional in your vehicle and still want to be on the cheaper end, because convertibles are actually cheaper than hatchbacks and notchback. Yeah, hatchbacks and notchbacks. Even in, this is one of the more desirable years for the 4i, 1986. And now, because this is a 2-year only front end, 85 to 86, right? And this car was actually originally a V6. So there is things to consider when you're swapping a convertible from the V6 to the V8, because they do have strengthening underneath, and the V8s have a little bit more strengthening underneath. So what I'm doing to rectify that, I actually didn't bring them with me, but you'll see. However, if we take a look inside the car, you'll see it's basically the same, although this one has power options, whatnot, and this one has an aftermarket radio in it. And with the center console, which something that's cool, when you have the center console in these cars, yeah, you'll hear the binging. So, do I have a bottle? Yes, I do. So, something you can do when you have, hang on, let me just pause this. There we go. Now, something for convenience, when you have these center console cars, because the other one you may have noticed that I put in cup holders myself. Well, with these center consoles, you can't put cup holders in here unless you like delete the ashtray and put one there, right? But just because of the way it's oriented, there's not. However, what you can do actually, so you see this bottle of water, I can actually stick it right in between the seat and the center console. You can see it right there. And it works as a cup holder. It will not fall out of that, honestly. And it does not spill. It's fantastic, honestly. But, yeah, anyways, let's take a look under this hood. Now, this car has a 302 in it. And it's going to be getting a bunch of upgrades this winter time, hopefully, with any luck. So, we take a look under the hood here. And, oh, God, it's hot. You'll see this 302. Now, here's the thing, when you're swapping to a V8 as well, when you're swapping to a 302, pay attention to what it's come out of, because there are 2 different 302s you can get. There is the non-high output, which is what this is, and then there's the high output, which the GTs and even LX has got out of the box, because this is actually an LX Convertible. But you can tell with the V8 in here, there's still room for activities and whatnot, you know, and I've got some upgrades like the MSD 6A box. I've got the same plug wires that I have on the other car. I have this Edelbrock air cleaner on it, stock headers. I do have these titanium lined boots for the spark plugs, and it's got the Optima battery in it right now. So now this thing, like, I do have a dyno sheet, and also it's got a Blaster 2 coil. Plus, it does have a Holley 600 carburetor on here. You can kind of see it there a little bit. And a vintage aftermarket Shelby intake. It says Cobra on it. And these were, they're 4-barrel intakes that you could order from Shelby back in the day. And yeah, no, Edelbrock actually had their own design of this, because they bought the design off of Shelby back in the day. And you could actually get an Edelbrock intake just like this. But instead of it saying Cobra up here, which you can barely kind of see that. Right in there, you can see the C there, and it says Cobra right across that, but you can't really see it because of the hoses and whatnot. But anyways, let us start this car, and you guys can see how this one sounds. And this one does have a bit of an exhaust on it as well. They've got just some aluminum chambered mufflers, just like this one does. And this one is more of a true dual sort of setup that way, but instead of, you know, like an H pipe or an X pipe or anything like that, because yeah, I was lied to. It's supposed to have an H pipe in it, but it doesn't. So yeah, so that's how this one sounds too. And now, my personal opinion on these cars, because like, okay, a lot of people will bag on these convertibles, and to be honest, they'll say, oh, you know, they're flimsy and whatnot, and they can't hold the power or whatever else like that. But to be honest, they really can. You just do have to watch, though, a little bit. And like, it's something that I'm going to do, actually. I have subframe connectors for this car that are going to be installed fairly soon, actually. So, and as well, this thing is going to be getting some upgrades under the hood with like Edelbrock heads, hopefully, and an E303 cam. And that's basically all I'm going to do. Maybe put some headers on it. It's going to get a T5 swap, which actually the T5 cars, the one thing to consider with those as well, it's just like price point is a lot more expensive for a manual car versus an automatic. Now you can find the later, what they call the Aero Mustang convertibles, with the 4-cylinder being a convertible for actually pretty cheap. They might need a little bit of work, but they're usually, you know, like this car, if you wanted to buy the equivalent of this car, at least here in Alberta, you're looking at probably $6,000 or so. Now, the later Aero convertibles with the 4-cylinder, and whether it's an automatic or manual, you can find both, those are typically only about $3,000 or $4,000. Now, the benefit with the 4-cylinder cars, the only thing you have to watch out for is the front springs. If you're going to swap to a V8, the front springs, they're going to sit quite low with the V8 up front, because they were never designed for the V8. You can still do it, but you just got to watch out that you're not having too tall of a tire. Like, even with the V8 and this thing from the V6, you can see it's sitting a little lower up front, right, with the stock V6 coils. And it's not like this is a super tall tire either. These are 205 70/14, I think, maybe 215. But regardless, they're not super tall. So, but that's something to consider with these as well. And you'll just have to get motor mounts, you know, the simple bolt-in kind. And I don't believe you have to modify the mounting place or anything. They should just kind of go in, but just, you know, replace them, sort of thing. And then you can have a V8, because the one thing is, with the V6 and the 4-cylinders might have a different bolt pattern for the tranny. I can't remember, but you can always swap out the bell housings, right? Unless it's an AOD, which those are integral to the transmission, so bear that in mind as well. However, these, to swap it out to a manual, though, because we're going to do this car, it's quite a bit involved. So you have to, of course, take out the pedals, which to do that, you have to drop the dash. There might be a way around that, but I don't think so. So it's just something that we'll have to address is, you know, dropping the dash, take the pedals out, put the other ones in. And then, honestly, you just need your, you know, think about your clutch cable and whatnot. And, yeah. Otherwise, you know what? It's a very worthwhile investment with these Fox bodies as well, because they keep going up. And the one thing is, like, well, that little notchback over there, even with the inline 6, last year I was offered $6,000 by multiple people on the car, but I'm just not taking it. It's worth more than that to me. It's my first car. I rebuilt it from the ground up, sort of thing, and I don't want to sell it, right? Just like I don't really want to sell this car. Like, and who knows? It might happen someday that I sell this car. I am attached to this car, but nowhere near as attached as I am to that car. And this car, like, the one thing is, which is more fun to drive between the two cars? This car is more fun to drive. I will say that 100%, because there is nothing better than driving your car, and even if it's not fast, because this thing's not fast at all, like 122 horsepower and it's about 35-ish foot-pounds of torque, is not, it's not fast. Like, but it feels fast at times. Sorry, brain fog. Ugh, that's annoying. And oh, it's hot out here too, very hot. But what was I even talking about? Oh yeah, so for fun, because there's nothing more fun than in my convertible, having the top down, having the tunes going, and just having a ball, to be honest. Because there is something to be said about having the wind in your hair. You know, it's just a thing that I love. And, you know, like, this car, more fun to drive, but that car is my heart. So it's just one of these deals. You know, and I have major plans with that car as well. You know, like forced induction, swap the rear end, swap it to a T5, all that different stuff. It's just a little more difficult to swap it to a T5 on those inline 6s, unless you have the bigger bell 81 and later motor. This is the smaller bell, like, that they swapped. they basically they did the swap in 1981 for the bell housing of what it is, and the later inline sixes actually did have it was essentially a 3/4 small block Ford bell housing, and all you had to do is just like drill a couple extra holes and put your bolts in, and presto, you know, it's pretty easy. Or you can just leave those top bolts out if you really want to. It's not it's not something I recommend, but like this car is missing one bolt from the transmission, but it's fine. It's got basically, as long as you have where the pins are that go into the transmission, as long as you have bolts around those, you're typically okay. But it's not something I'd recommend to, you know, just leave bolts hanging about, and especially if you want to build these for a ton of power. And as well, if you're wanting to build out these 302s, do bear in mind that the threshold for power, now people have said that they have gotten more, I want to see the dyno sheet to prove that they got more power than what is the dangerous threshold. These are 500 horsepower. You get 500 horsepower, and for the most part, you crack a hole in the block. That's just what they do. But considering these things, if you have the high output, they were about 225 horsepower back then. These were only 155 out of the box. Now this car, you know, its engine is a little more tired. Like, it's not super tired. It doesn't smoke really bad or anything like that. But you know, it definitely like it was sat for a long time, whatever else too. And it was out of an 88 T-Bird, and we didn't even know the mileage of that T-Bird because I had a digital dash that was no longer working. But yeah, that's just one of those things to consider when you're looking at doing work to these cars, right? Because yeah, like when you want to buy these cars, and these cars are light. Bear that in mind. This car honestly has quite a good amount of power. I shouldn't say a good amount of power. Like this car weighs a lot more than my notchback. Because bear in mind, the early notchbacks are some of the lightest Mustangs ever produced. So that car over there, I've had it on the scales, not with those big tires on it, but how it used to be with, I don't even know if I had the dual exhaust on at that point. I may have, and not even this dual exhaust, it was a different style exhaust that I had on it, and it just wasn't great. But anyway, so that car is 2,680 pounds. This car, I'm assuming, is somewhere around 3,200 pounds, maybe 33. So that is something to consider if you're looking at a convertible. They are heavier than your notchbacks or your hatchbacks, because a hatchback is about 150 pounds heavier than that. So yeah, but your notchbacks are definitely your lightest cars. And for me, I love the look of them the most. But that's just personal preference, right? But anyways, I think I've rambled on for long enough here. Because yeah, it's just all these things to kind of consider if you're looking at these. And as well, you do have to watch out for rust in some areas. Like these things on the shock towers rust out bad, to be honest. So do watch for that. You will have actually, all cars have it, like both these cars have a little bit of rust actually on the driver's side floor towards the front. Now, it's typical, honestly, like that car has it, this car has it too. It's not through yet, but it's something that I do have to address on both the cars. However, it's not a big deal, but it's something to watch for sure. And if you're considering any of these convertibles, or a T-top car, or a sunroof car, do bear in mind that when they leak, standing water will make rust happen. So do pay attention to that as well. Always like look around your cars very carefully when you are considering buying them, especially these classics. And yeah, but anyways, so yeah, hopefully this video was a little insightful for y'all. And yeah, what you can do like with these cars is you can do anything. Like people, there's somebody has swapped in, actually, I follow him on Instagram, it's Colstang. He swapped in, I think it's a 12 valve Cummins into Fox bodies and Arrow. Very badass car, and I think he's on Miles of Mayhem potentially right now. Potentially, I can't remember for sure, but you know, he's got that. And people have swapped 5.7 Hemis into these, and 2JZs, SR20s, take your pick. Basically every motor's been swapped into these cars, so yeah. But yeah, anyways, I am going to let you all go. Definitely appreciate if you watched till the end. Thank you so much for watching. And again, my name is Katarina from Katarina's Garage. If you haven't, consider subscribing to the channel and also hitting that like button and commenting anything you want to say down below. You know what? But I will say, if you're a bit of a douche or whatnot, you'll get flamed and you'll get blasted online. So that's just what I do. But yeah, or sometimes I just report your comment and delete it. Either or. Just depends on my mood that day. But anyways, hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, you know, like, comment, subscribe. Hope you're staying safe during COVID-19. Good luck with whatever we're working on. And I'll catch you in the next video. Bye! Pikachu!